Okay, how's that for everybody online? Is that better? Awesome. Okay, so I apologize in advance. Sometimes when I use a different computer and all that, I mess up the sound for the recording. So please, if you are online, thank you so much for telling me. I'll catch it pretty soon if you say something. I could go the whole lecture without realizing I'm muted, if not. So I will try to be attentive to that. I also, maybe I mentioned this last time, but I broke my audio a little bit. So if I just use the webcam audio, which I just did to the people online, it's like really staticky. So I recognize that I did that to them, and it probably had their ears fried for a moment. So pardon me for that. I'll do my best to keep that under control. So, okay, what I was saying to everybody is today I want to focus on what is development. That'll lead into kind of development in the water, wastewater, sanitation type of thing. So today I wanted to really start talking about the foreword. Read that with you. I've got it pulled up here. Bring it over. Okay. So I want to just go ahead and essentially read this with you, and then we're going to discuss a few things about kind of the motivations for the book, for development, for like what is good, good and evil type thing, like a little bit philosophical today, some discussion. So be thinking about that. Actually, speaking of thinking of things, I did want to do one thing before I got here, and I apologize. What I want to do before we get into that discussion, I do want to get some feedback from you about what topics you're interested in to do research projects on. Okay, so today the overall goal, we'll talk about the development, talk about what is ethics, a little bit of ethics, what is good. We'll get into ethics more next time. Today we'll talk a little bit about prosperity, what that means, and then what is global health. So before we do all that, I did want to get some brainstorming with you about research topics, potential research topics. I could certainly draft a bunch of my own and say, hey, pick one. In fact, that's kind of what I'm going to do, but I want to engage you. So hopefully you had the weekend to think about it, have a few minutes right now to think about it. But as they occur to you, if there's some sort of a geographical, a disease-related, some sort of a topic regarding something related to water, wastewater, environmental technologies in developing countries, what do you have? Yeah. What'd you say? Flint, Michigan. Okay. So in that sense, kind of domestically developing areas, if you want to call it that. Okay. And that we could put that as geographical. We could also potentially treat that as a contaminant. So my thinking here was maybe there's some other categories we can use as well, but sometimes you could just take a look at a specific region, maybe a specific, maybe arsenic, something like that, and then break them down into the subgroups we talked about last time. What are the economic considerations? What are the social considerations? Things like that. Okay, so what else? Yeah.
Maybe like mercury and selenium in mining areas.
Okay, so.
Not everywhere, but in certain areas.
So really mining, and probably illicit mining, right, activities. We will definitely talk a little bit about that. I encountered a little bit of that in Nicaragua. It's a good one. So heavy metals related to mining. Yeah.
That would just make me think of it, like the effects of like deforestation on like water quality.
Okay.
Communities that rely upon water that needs deforestation.
Excellent. What else? Yeah.
Yeah, this studies affect
Atrazine. Okay, so essentially, so atrazine is a pesticide. So I'll say atrazine here, or more broadly, pesticides. Yeah, and I've heard it in Panama that's a big problem. I think atrazine in particular, that unregulated use of pesticides can really cause a big problem in wide regions. What else? Yeah.
I know, like, overseas, a lot of textile dyeing causes pollution.
You said textiles?
Yeah, like the textile dyeing process causes a lot of pollution in rivers.
Yeah. That's a good one. What else? Yeah.
I've heard recently that the infection of COVID virus related to water source.
Okay, so generally the topic of tracking COVID based on water sources, like wastewater kind of stuff. Okay, so let's say and that is a very interesting topic in the sense of, you know, developing countries are not going to have the same level of capability to understand what their populations are dealing with, not the same information routes to manage any sort of a response. So that would be an interesting one. Okay, what else? Yeah.
Do like oil exploration, like Mexico and everything, and that through that like contamination of waters that you just.
So oil industry contaminations, essentially?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just going to put that in the contaminant sort of a spot. All right. What else? Landfills are one thing that come to mind for me in terms of potential sources of pollution. If not properly managed, you have potential runoff, potential seepage into water sources. You've got just actual physical garbage, sanitation issues with that. Lots of cultural, legal, all sorts of factors involved there. What else? Any countries or regions in particular that you're interested in? Yeah.
This is also in the United States, but I read a book on poor water quality, how like septic tanks were leaking into the water supplies of, I know septic tanks were leaking in general, but people somehow ended up ingesting contaminated water in rural Alabama.
Right.
It was a book that came out like I think 2 years ago by
Okay.
Richard Lewis Cushman.
Okay.
Policy on that.
Yeah, that combines a lot of these, so I'm going to put it over here for the moment. Could be, well, yeah.
I mean, it's all over the United States, but the book was specifically about.
Yeah, and I think I've heard of that, because specifically, I think Southern Alabama, a lot of
I think
places.
it's called Wasted, the book, or something like that.
And private wells. Great. I actually, with our new faculty member, Aaron Bivens, just arrived this semester, and he and I put together a proposal to EPA to work on something kind of similar in Louisiana. There's a lot of kind of rural areas that aren't able to use a septic system because it's just simply the ground is marshy and you can't put, legitimately use a septic field. And so instead there's a lot of homes with individual like point of use wastewater treatment things, which, as you might imagine, are not very well regulated and are not very well operated in terms of maintenance and all that, because people, unless it's one of us operating it, you might not know that, you're going to have to get the sludge cleaned every so often, or keep the ants from making ant nests inside the chamber or whatever. So there's a big need for even locally taking action to help infrastructure help basics of infrastructure be implemented appropriately and in a manner that whoever is maintaining it, using it, can actually maintain and use it.
Right. One of the main points from the book was saying how the state would charge or would apply a fee to these people who couldn't even afford to update their septic systems in the first place. So it touches on that social point.
Social and legal and technological. That's a good one. All right, what else? You're gonna have to do a lot of reading and writing about this kind of stuff. So, now's your chance to tell me what you want to read and write about. Yeah.
I was thinking just groundwater contamination from Superfund sites. I don't know if that's a good one to put up there, but if we could talk about it.
Yeah. So groundwater in general is definitely applicable, and if you look outside the U.S., it won't be called a Superfund, but there are places that are essentially ought to be treated as a Superfund, but maybe don't even know that, or maybe that information is not out there. I'll put it in here, just kind of so we have a basic understanding of what that means, but that could happen anywhere. In the U.S., hopefully we've identified those and protect, important drinking water sources and all that, but even that may not always be the case. Would be worth looking at.
I mean, along those lines, seawater intrusion.
Okay.
And groundwater sources.
Yeah, and that definitely, I'm going to put it in geographical. These categories may not make any sense anyway, but we'll kind of sort through them to make a list for you to choose from. But that is definitely directly groundwater contamination related. If you withdraw too much groundwater in coastal areas, that's definitely an issue. Yeah.
I don't know if it's be general industry pollution, I read this case study once about somewhere in, I think it was Peru, that it was some sort of chemical company that was a U.S. corporation out there, and they discharged all their pollutants and chemicals into the local river, and kids were dying from swimming in it.
So, and I, part of me wants to put that in a slightly broader category of exporting our environmental problems.
Yeah.
Right? So, exported environmental impacts, which could be anywhere, it could be any industry, just about. Certainly a big source of problems that then a country that doesn't have such a strong legal system is trying to deal with, or is letting their citizens deal with. What else? Yeah.
Almost 90% of the water, of clean water is not well used because there's not an efficient hydraulic system in the country. So that is
Okay, so hydraulic infrastructure essentially, right? And that could go in geographical. I'm going to put it here. I'm going to just go ahead and label Honduras here because that may be interest. I know you have particular interest there, and I think that might be. I'm going to think about how to organize all this. Yeah.
Let's say radioactive water.
Okay.
Like I know the nuclear power plants have pollutants.
So I'm going to say radioactive waste, essentially. Okay. So probably groundwater or surface. All right. What else? Yeah. Okay, so a couple of the oil exploration, transportation type things, and so I'll add here transport to kind of catch the Keystone XL or other possible concerns. And then you also said essentially sunscreen contamination in like tourist beach kind of areas, sort of reef damage is I think a particular concern. Okay. What else? Yeah. Can you speak up just a little?
Oh, I'm so sorry. I was saying that this might have to do with like hydraulic but also disease. I know like 5 to 10 years ago they needed like not like over half the population didn't have access to a toilet and they can use at home. So like just public sanitation
Yeah.
stores.
Yeah.
That has to do with like local communities like being impacted by their waste.
Yeah, absolutely. So that essentially access to safe sanitation, that's potentially public versus versus having private sanitation in your house or in your yard or something. So access to safe sanitation. It's a huge one. Thank you. Anything else? Yeah.
Eutrophication and algal bloom fertilizer.
Okay, so maybe in kind of a developing context, we could say unregulated runoff, especially from agriculture, but just in general, unregulated waste runoff of some sort, right?
Yeah, like in Mexico they had like last year, like 2 years ago, like really bad algal blooms that like pretty much disrupted the entire tourism industry.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So in some ways, specifically, algal blooms. So the related contaminant there is the unregulated runoff. Okay. Yes.
Probably like a general overarching point, just like how climate change exacerbates a lot of these problems. Like in India, whenever a lot of people who already don't have access to safe sanitation infrastructure, like whenever it rains and the rains are getting more extreme, like obviously like there's poop in the streets
Right.
and where the children play.
Right. So sort of a climate impacts and severe weather.
Yeah. That's like even a problem in the United States too.
Okay. Anything else? All right. So thank you. I'll be thinking about how to kind of organize and package this in a way that makes sense for you to select something you're interested in, something that sounds interesting, and then kind of a subset so that we can form a few groups, topic-wise, that a few of you can do your independent paper on, and then come together as a group to teach the class something about this specific topic. And maybe you're the legal side, so you've looked at the environmental problems and looked at the legal mechanisms that can add to it. So it'll be the environmental, water, wastewater context, and then you can flavor that as you choose, in a sense, to make a nice group presentation. So that's my plan, and I've got some work cut out to organize this into something that hopefully you can take from. A little bit of flexibility there, so do let me know if you see something that I'm suggesting that maybe we can improve on, of course. Okay, so thank you. All right, so now I'm going to want to get to the foreword, and really be thinking about kind of what does it mean, like